everybody, I'm Amber Ryan and welcome to my channel. So today's video, as you may have noticed in the title, is kind of a mashup wrap-up video for the past couple months, July and August. The main reason I did this is because I originally did film my July wrap-up video, but the unfortunate part of this is I basically had a rough couple of months. I went through a really bad reading slump. I also had so much going on between work and family life that there was just, it was absolute chaos. It was a wreck. So I didn't do very well with my TBR. And so I didn't read very many books the past couple months is what I'm trying to get at. So it kind of didn't make sense to do the wrap-ups as their own videos. I originally intended to do that and I had filmed all of my July wrap-up video, and then I just never got around to editing and uploading it. So basically I'm just going to mash it up with my August wrap-up, and we're just going to do two in one go. And yeah, so you are going to see some pretty old clips, but from, you know, past couple months. But that's really the best I can think of, the best way I can think of to get all this wrap up together, because if you do watch my TBR Clue Game videos, then you may be interested to see how those books turned out for me. So that's why I do these wrap up videos. And I clearly didn't do very well the past couple months with my TBR, so I didn't get around to as many books as I hoped for. Last month specifically, I had a great TBR laid out for me. It was the perfect TBR Clue Game. I had really high hopes for the month of August, and then basically the best way to put it is shit hit the fan. So I just didn't have time. I was super busy all month. I basically got very stressed out and had some anxiety problems on top of that, and so it wasn't working out for me. It wasn't going great. So unfortunately I didn't read very much of the past couple months, so I am actually behind on my 60 book challenge on Goodreads. As of today, I am, I believe, behind by 3 to 4 books, so that's not great. I think that's the worst it's been all year. I was doing great up till then, and now, yeah, so I'm gonna have to play some catch up. I have already filmed my TBR Clue Game for September. It's still going. I did go ahead and do, I'm calling it Simple September, so it'll be a simpler TBR, a simpler game, but it'll still be fun, and it'll hopefully help me catch up because I do have a lot planned for October. So this is basically just going to be a catch-up month. So yeah, so enough said. Let's finally get into my July and August wrap-ups for TBR, so let's get into it. So I believe I had, for July, I honestly don't remember at this point, so yeah, for July, let me see if I can find, yes, so, okay. For July, I believe I actually had planned 7 books from the birthday edition version of the Clue Game. And so that's the weirdest part about these past couple months, is the games were set up so perfectly for me. I had great TBRs lined up, and then there was just so much going on in my life that it was just difficult to actually read and to focus and to motivate myself to do it. So I honestly am so sad that those months didn't play out well, especially because July I had the special birthday edition of the game. I had like a great TBR, and I even had my vacation. I went to New Orleans, and I didn't read the entire time I was there, so I think that's kind of where it went downhill a little bit. But honestly, it's been a weird couple months. So so yeah, I originally planned 7 books. I even had a couple, actually I had 9 books total by the end of the game because I unwrapped a couple from my sister. So I had like 9 possible books to read for the month of July. And I only read, out of the 9 books, I only read 4 books. Woo, the dust flying. I just took them off my bookshelf. Okay, so these are the 4 books I read in the month of July, out of the 9 books, which isn't too bad, honestly. There's just 5 books I didn't get to, and honestly, I did start The Sanatorium, and I got about almost halfway through it and just couldn't get into it, and then I struggled, and this was the last book I had attempted that month, and then I ran out of time. So technically 4.5 books for the month of July. That was the best I could do, pretty much. So I'm just really sad that I didn't complete all 9, but anyways, so you will be seeing clips of my individual thoughts on each of these books, but let's go over the stats, shall we? First, I believe I read The Haunting of Sunshine Girl, and I didn't really care for this one. I ended up giving it a 3-star rating, and it was 294 pages long. Then I proceeded with Nancy's Mysterious Letter, the 8th Nancy Drew book in the series. Trying to get through all 25 that I own of these this year, and I'm not making good progress, but I did listen to the audiobook on YouTube for this one, and I gave it 3 stars as well. It wasn't my favorite, and it had 174 pages, which is the average length for Nancy Drew. And then I read Escape from Asylum, which is basically the prequel to the original trilogy of the Asylum series. And yeah, so I was one step closer to finishing the full-on series. I did read this, and it was a 5-star rating. It was the only 5-star rating I gave in July, so pretty good book. Was very anxiety-inducing. I struggled through it, but I did finish it, so there's that. And I read Places We've Never Been by Casey West, and yes, so this was a 4-star rating, and it had 320 pages. Escape from Asylum was 340 pages by Madeline Rowe. Yes, so those are the 4 books I completed in July, with a total of 1,128 pages read. Now that does not include the half of The Sanatorium that I read. I did read about half of that, and I don't know how many pages that was, but I did read half of that. I'm just not including it because I didn't finish the book. So and I haven't completely given up on reading that one. I just really struggled to get into it. So it's gonna have to be a month where I actually have some downtime, or where I'm actually feeling focused for a change, to hopefully finish that one. But yeah, so that's how I did for the month of July. And let's get into the clips of my individual feelings for all of those. It's a mess, so here we go. Right, it is officially 7-11. It is July 11th. Wow, life has just been insane this July. So my birthday has come and gone. My birthday was on the 7th, so I'm officially 25 years old, which is wild. I'm feeling a little old. And then while I was, for my birthday, we left on, of course there's 4th of July, and then I left on the 5th to go to New Orleans, Louisiana, and, yeah, and then on the way back from there, we actually stopped in Laurel, Mississippi, and I got to see where the show Hometown is filmed, which was pretty cool. It was pretty awesome. And then we came home, I want to say the 9th. Was it the 9th? It may have been the 8th. It was 10 o'clock on the 8th. It was at night. It was late night. I believe on the 8th. Yeah, because my birthday was the Friday. So, but yeah, we spent 3 nights in New Orleans. We spent 11 hours driving there on the 5th, and then spent our first night there, and then we had 2 days of basically doing whatever we wanted to in New Orleans. We did so much. It was a great birthday trip. Yeah, we fit so much into the 2 days that we were there in New Orleans. And then, so it was 3 nights and 2 days. And then we drove to Laurel, Mississippi, where Hometown is filmed, and we basically were just there for the day, for half a day, just shopping in the downtown area, seeing where the show is filmed. We got to see the Mercantile, went to Laurel Leaf, the shop, and we basically shopped all over downtown and saw all of that area. And then we went to where Ben's workshop is, and I actually got to take a picture of where he works and where they filmed the show there, which it was so cool, and it was so much fun, and I'm super proud of of going on this journey. And basically I faced a lot of fears. I do get kind of anxiety, you know, with bigger cities. I'm from a small town, so bigger city was very daunting to me. It was wild. But it was so much fun. I had a great time. But yeah, and even though I had 11 hours to get there and probably over 11 hours to get back home, I did not read at all while I was there. I even bought more books while I was there. I went to a bookstore in New Orleans, and it was like a used secondhand bookstore called, I believe, Crescent City Books on the French Quarter. And I even bought a couple books from there that was based in New Orleans. And I think I brought home like 6 books from New Orleans, but I didn't even read. I took 3 books with me and I didn't touch them at all. So this wrap up is beginning, you know, after I've been back for a couple days, and I'm back at work, so it's, you know, back to normal life and trying to readjust to that. And yeah, so luckily, unfortunately, because of all that, I am starting my TBR pretty late. I'm halfway through the month. But that kind of seems to be my pace lately. Like the past few months I have done that, and I don't know why. I don't know what's going on. For some reason, at the beginning of the month I'll go through a slight reading slump, and then I kick it, and then I race. Starting halfway of the month, I race to try and get through my TBR, and I don't always get through all of the books. And I did pretty much load myself down this month, I believe, with 9 books to read. Which is pretty insane on my part, considering the past couple months I haven't been able to finish all of the books on my TBR. So I don't know how this month is going to go for the rest, but today, on the 11th, I did read an entire book off of my TBR, which I'm pretty happy with. It was an average length. I believe it was 320 pages. Let me double check that. Yeah, it was 320 pages long, which is Places We've Never Been by Casey West. Now, I do have another book by this author, and she actually has a few others. She is more into the romance trope writing, basically books that you would find maybe on Wattpad that are lesser known or something, is the best way I can describe it. She's just more into the tropes that go around, that are frequently used, and I'm not hating on that. Like, you know, some writers do a really great job with those tropes and make it their own. And she did a really good job with this book. However, it was more, I think, young adult. It was not fit for my, probably up to my standards, you know, for my age or whatever. Man, I'm freshly 25 and I'm already getting into the old, oh, not YA, no. But I think this was just more for the younger of the young adult genre. So It was a fairly good book. I am going to go ahead and give it a 4-star rating. I haven't even entered that on Goodreads. I literally just finished the book. I had like 36 pages to read when I got home from work that was left. So I quickly finished it, and here I am filming. So, but it was a pretty decent book. It went through the trope of childhood best friend, grew up together, he moves away, and then when he comes back, he decides to just ignore her, and their families were close. Their moms were best friends, so all of the children became friends by default, and basically they have come together to go on this RV trip together. His mom actually has a mysterious illness. They're hiding this big secret that his mom has this big illness, and they're not telling anyone, and eventually she finds out, and so yeah, it's just this big mess of a trope. And her best friend, her previous childhood best friend, has come back on this trip, and he started off ignoring her, not giving her any attention, basically acted like he didn't want to be there, so it hurt her feelings because she was so excited to see him and for this trip to happen. But it did end with a happy ending, which I did expect, because I think the way she writes, I believe most of her books will end with a happy ending because they are one-offs, and that's not a bad thing. And I was kind of hoping for that good ending, and I was super happy with it. So I kind of had wished there was a little bit more at the end, because I feel like it ended very suddenly. And it didn't quite go the places where I wanted it to go. Like, this could have been a longer book. It was about a road trip. So there's a lot you could do to fill the pages and really flesh out the story. And there was a lot of things that could have been done or said that just didn't happen. But I think it's because it's for the younger part of the young adults that's why it wasn't. I feel like if it was for more of the older, slightly older, part of why, I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly, but if it was for the slightly older generation, it would be, I feel like it'd be more fleshed out and be thicker, and there'd be more to read, and there'd be more of a story. This felt like a simple read. I did fly through it in a day, but it was pretty good, and I am going to give it 4 stars for what it was. It was pretty good. I do have one of her other books. I forget the name of it now, but I do have one of her other books. And I am interested in reading a couple of her other ones that I have heard about since this one. So that may, I don't know, I may get a couple more of hers. I may give her, more tries. But I do think this is meant for slightly younger, even like high school. It's probably high schoolers is what I'm thinking. This is probably more for high schoolers than it is for people in their 20s. So that's the best way to describe it, I think. Anyways, but I did read that entirely in one day. I'm pretty proud of myself for that one. Okay, so it is July 12th, Wednesday. It is 8 o'clock when I'm finally getting around to filming this. So I did read another whole book today. So that's 2 days in a row that I've read a full book in a day. Super proud of myself for that. And today I actually read a book that has been on my shelves for many years. It's one of the oldest books I think I own, and yeah, I don't know how I feel about this one. It was The Haunting of Sunshine Girl by Sunshine Girl herself, Paige McKenzie. She had the very first Haunted series on YouTube, and I never actually watched that series when it first came out, and I had never really heard of it until this book came out. And then I bought the book and I started to watch like her first season of the series or whatever, and it was hard for me to get into. I gave up on the book. I had barely started it and I just wasn't into it, and it kind of was the same story this time around. Luckily, I had already used a credit to get the audiobook on Audible for this one, and so that's the way I consumed this one. I didn't actually get to use the physical book. But luckily, like I said, I had already used the credit. I had already got the audiobook, so it just really worked out that way that today I would listen to this book. And yeah, so I did finish it today. I started and finished it all in one day, and I'm glad I can finally check it off of my reading list and, you know, after so many years, like, finally just be done with it. I didn't realize that since then, it has become a series, so, or at least a trilogy, I think. So there are 2 more books to follow this one. However, I think I've decided I'm not going to continue with this series. I just wasn't too into it, unfortunately. So I believe I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads. I just wasn't in love with it for some reason. I was hoping I would be. You know, I guess there was a lot more hype behind it than what, you know, than what it deserved, I guess. Or maybe I'm just not, maybe I have, like, grown too much out of that demographic that this book was aimed towards, maybe. But yeah, I wasn't too into this one. I tried. I fought tooth and nail to really enjoy this one, and I didn't. I really didn't. So, and I didn't really like where it went. I didn't like the pace of the book. The characters were just kind of hard to, I was basically coping with them. I felt like I was settling, and I was trying to force myself to like it, and I didn't really enjoy it. It is Tuesday, I believe. Yes? No? Yes, Tuesday, July 18th. So I got a little bit to talk about. And I would like to point out that it is 96. I don't know if you guys can read it. 96 degrees right now where I live in Arkansas. Yeah, you're gonna hear that pesky fan again in the background. It kind of annoyed me on the last video, but there's just nothing I can do about it. It's so hot where I live. Like, I don't understand how people do without air conditioners and everything, because it's boiling. Alright, so we actually have 2 books to talk about today for this clip. This past weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I listened to the latest Nancy Drew on my escapade. Nancy's Mysterious Letter. It is the 8th book of the series, and I did fly through it. I actually put it on 1.5 speed and just flew right through it. I wasn't too interested in this one. And I feel like I've been saying that for almost every Nancy Drew lately, and that's kind of sad. And I don't know if it's just because they're not the well-known ones, or if it's just something that I'm not clicking with, or what. But, because I had never heard of this one previously, and yeah, so I knew nothing about it, and yeah, I just wasn't very pleased with this one. So, yeah, and it was kind of like, a storyline they had kind of already done previously, where someone was pretending to be Nancy Drew and took her identity, basically. But this is basically just someone with the same name as her. But they've had that in a previous book where someone has taken her identity and pretended to be her. So it kind of felt a little repetitive, you know, like they were reusing an idea and just giving it a different story, like a different play, you know. So, but yeah, honestly, I think it's a story that I won't remember. I barely remember some details already, and yeah, I just listened to it this weekend, so. But, yeah, so this one I will briefly mention, I'll briefly talk about. What I do remember of this one is, a mail carrier, her postman, had stopped by during a storm. She invited him in, and while he was in there, he had left his bag in this part on the porch, I guess. Like, weird area. They called it something weird. It was written in, like, the 1930s or 40s, but I think they called it a vestibule. I don't know, I'm not gonna look it up, but he had left his bag out on the porch or something. Someone had stolen all of the letters out of it, including a letter to Nancy and a letter, there was a couple full of money. There was one about a marriage engagement or whatever. Or no, an inheritance. Someone had a big inheritance out for them, and as long as they can prove that they are the Nancy Drew that this law company is looking for, and that was the one to Nancy Drew that was stolen. So he just didn't have enough time to steal her letter and stole all of the letters, and some of them happened to contain money, and including her father. His client sent some money, a bunch of money actually, it sounded like, in her letters. So it was a big ordeal. All of that money had been eventually returned, I think over halfway through the book. But so eventually Nancy did discover it was her letter that was purposely being stolen, and he just didn't have enough time to just steal hers. He had to steal all of them. And it was all about that inheritance given to Nancy Drew, Nancy Drew Smith. Is the lady that was supposed to get the inheritance, and they were looking for her, and yeah, this guy wanted to basically get all this money to himself. He was going to marry her without letting her know, and it was a big ordeal. Yeah, so this was kind of a strange one. It was a little out there. I know some of them get really far out there, at least according to the games, but this one was just a little weird. Which, if I remember right, the Redgate Farm one, Mystery at Redgate Farm, maybe, that one was really weird, and it like involved a cult, and what is it? The word, man. Counterfeiting. Wow. So it also included like counterfeiting under the ruse of a cult. Can't get weirder than that, can you? So Nancy Drew books can be a little out there, but so this one was a little strange. I didn't quite love it. I didn't love the story, and like I said, I had it at like 1.5 speed, just trying to knock it out. And yeah, so I think it was Sunday actually. I just listened to the whole thing Sunday. It only took a few hours and I was done and moving on. So alright, so the other book I wanted to talk about today that I just finished today is Escape from Asylum by Madeleine Roux is how I pronounce her name. I don't think it's right. I think it's like Madeline, and I may have pronounced it differently earlier when I was talking about the book. But yeah, so this one was different from the original trilogy. This one was different from the original trilogy of the Asylum series. And if you guys didn't know, there was an original trilogy, and then this is the prequel, Escape from Asylum. So the first three was Asylum, Catacombs, and Sanctum. And Sanctum may have been before Catacombs, because I think the third one actually took place in New Orleans, if I remember right. It's been a while since I've read the original trilogy, but and this one is the prequel to that. So in the original trilogy, there are a few high school students that are doubling for college classes at this at Brookline that used to be an asylum on this big college campus. They basically shoved the summer prospects and students into the old asylum building, which was the least nicest of the whole campus, I believe. So they basically, that's why they put them there. And then some crazy stuff starts happening, and our main guy, spoiler alert, finds out he was somehow related to Warden Crawford, who ran the asylum. He was the crazy doctor who did all these crazy experiments, and it got wild. He did some crazy shit. So, Anyways, the original trilogy is super good. Literally give it 5 stars. Highly recommend that series if you're looking for a good horror series. It's great. You never know what's going to happen next. And it also has a little bit of mixed media in there because it includes some old vintage photos that the books are inspired by. And it's, if you've ever read like Miss Peregrine's Peculiar Children, it's like that. And I actually enjoyed this series more than that book. So, but yeah, so this one was different. It's been a while since I had read the original trilogy, and I've owned this one for so long. And even when I reread the original trilogy, I still didn't read this one. So this one's been just waiting. And I finally read it. I finally finished it today. I had actually started it, see, on the 13th. So, yeah, so I actually had started it last Thursday, and then I got through half of it by Friday, and then on the weekend I took a break. Sunday I listened to Nancy Drew, and then Monday I read about maybe 40 to 50 pages, I think. Maybe a little more than that. It may have been a little more than that, because I think today I only had 70, I know today I only had 70 pages to read, so maybe it was a little more than that. But, so today, like I said, 70 pages, and I finally finished it, and yeah, I'm glad I finally, like, pushed myself to finish this one. And the reason I kept putting this one off is because when I read, I definitely like put myself in the main character's shoes and try to live like they, you know, live through it like they do. You know, I really take it in my head and I visualize everything in my head. I'm one of those people that I can really picture stuff in my head like a movie, and I'm like watching the movie as I'm reading kind of deal. And so doing that can be a little dangerous for your mentality on certain books, you know, and it can be really trying. So this one was it gave me a lot of anxiety because the main character is in an asylum against his will, and he didn't even deserve to be there. Yeah, he had slight temper problems, and he was gay, and that was the whole reason he was there. And it just, he lived a very unfair life. And his mother's boyfriend had basically convinced his mom to put him there, and so he just shouldn't have been there. And half of the people, of course, in the asylums these days did not deserve to be there. So it's just a very sad and ordeal, and it gives me a lot of anxiety to kind of have to live through that, you know, to go through that experience and you know, live as the main character in your head while experiencing that, and all the torture and the pain you hear about and all these horrific events that you hear about, and you know that that stuff actually happened at some point in history, and even like fairly recently that has happened. Like there was deep mentions of shock therapy. There was mentions of, you know, the hosing off patients with switching from cold and hot water and just hosing them off while they stand in front of the hose, and like it all just sounded excruciating, honestly. And it was very heartbreaking, and it was very hard for me to really, you know, go through all that. So that's why it took me so long to tackle this one, and why it took so long when I was reading it, because I actually had to take that weekend break, and I couldn't read so much at a time every sitting, because it was hard, you know. But I do recommend this book, and it was really good. I do plan on giving it, you know, I'm debating between giving it 4.5 to 5 stars. I probably will round it up to 5 on Goodreads, but I think just a 4.5 will be my general rating here, because I didn't like the ending. So I felt like there should have been this grand breakout, you know, these characters, you know, ganging up, and there kind of was an instance of that, and it went really wrong. But I feel like there should have been some grand escape, and you know, the characters should have had, you know, a happier ending. But the way it ended, basically his mom just came to her senses and came and got him in the end, after spending, you know, all of this time in the asylum, going through this great torture and being so mistreated, and experiencing all that, like, and he shouldn't have even been there. It's just so sad, and it made me so mad, honestly. Like, when he would go through his temper tantrums, I was like, yeah, go for it. And it was just a heart-wrenching read. And, you know, you just really understand where this character is coming from. But in that setting, like in a functioning asylum, and you're trying to escape, and you're there against your will, and, you know, being around all of this, you know, it's just really... Whew. So it gave me a lot of anxiety. It was kind of stressful. I was at the edge of my seat. You never knew what was going to happen next. I didn't know how it was going to go or how it was going to end, and I didn't know if it would have a happy ending. The others did in the series, but you know, it kind of, you know, it really freaked me out, you know. So the unknown really worried me with this one. It was intense, but it was really good. So I do recommend Escape from Asylum. Yeah, and I do actually have the book of all of the novellas now, so I'm definitely going to be hopefully reading that soon. Hopefully I can make it into TBR Clue, hopefully next month. I don't think it'd be a long read, and knowing those short stories, you know, I think there's only 4 of them. And I've been dying to read them and just to finish out the series for good. And eventually I would like to reread the original trilogy as well again. That's a series that I keep going back to and I've reread it, I think, twice already over the years. And yeah, and I'm trying to find just a quick little every chapter had that, and then there were several vintage photos in here, and I'm trying to find one, and it would really pull the setting through, you know, and it would just, yeah, so stuff like that. And they were all like super creepy, but yeah, those pictures, you know, are supposed to evoke feeling, and they're making you feel more into that environment, into that setting, and it really worked. I really love how this series did that. I felt it more, I enjoyed the photos more with the original trilogy. I think this one had basically all the backlog of photos that she had left from the original trilogy. I don't think many of them were new. But yeah, and if you don't read the original trilogy, you can read this one by itself. It is meant to be a standalone if you wanted to, but for avid readers or people who have read the original trilogy and enjoyed it, there's also some hidden details in here that kind of carry over from the trilogy, so it's kind of meant to be for both types of readers. And it, you know, it's pretty good, so I do recommend that. Alright, so now let's talk about the month of August, the latest month. I did not do great. So out of my TBR, I had actually planned, I believe, 8 books. Yeah, I had 8 books on my TBR for August. I was trying to play catch up. I was hoping I'd read my entire TBR because I was doing so poorly. And I was actually off to a great start. The month started off great. I basically flew through 2 of the books on my TBR, and then I hit a snag. Life got crazy, and it basically went downhill from there. So yeah, I did not end it very strong. I started it off strong, and then it just struggled. It was the struggle bus the whole time. And I did end up reading a total of 3 books last month. However, 1 was not on my TBR from the game, and I'll get into that in a second. So out of the 8 books that I had planned, there were only 2 that I completed, starting with The Twyford Code by Janice Hallett, and I did give this a 5-star rating. Great book. And Twyford Code was 322 pages long. I then read through audiobook on Audible The Haunting at Bonaventure Circus by Jamie Jo Wright. And that was a pretty good book. I believe I also rated it 5 stars. And it was 383 pages long. And then the book that was not originally on my TBR that I did complete and read is Red, White, and Royal Blue, 418 pages long, and it was also a 5-star rating. So if you look at it in retrospect, out of the 3 books that I read, all 3 were 5-star ratings, which is amazing. And you know, that can be considered a great month in reading, except the quantity wasn't there. So the quality was, but the quantity wasn't. So that was pretty sad. But these are the 3 books I read in the month of August. And now you can see why I just decided to mash up my 2 wrap-up videos together in one. Yeah, so in total, I read 3 books, all 5-star ratings, and I read 1,123 pages total for the month of August, which still isn't too bad. I believe, you know, it was just a fewer amount of pages than I did the month before, but still, I'm just kind of disappointed that the quantity wasn't there. But I am happy that it was 3 5-star ratings. Like, the chances of that happening was very, very like low. So but we're gonna get into the individual clips of me talking about each of these reads now for the month of August, and I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I will see you guys at the end. It is Thursday, August 3rd, so I am sorry for all the background noise going on right now. Unfortunately, my air conditioner is literally right next to me. It is 102 degrees here in Arkansas today, as you can probably tell by my very red, sweaty face. And I just got home from work, so hella hot. So this is what best I can do today. Anyways, so I just wanted to update the Twyford Code. I finished it today, mostly by Audible, but I kind of also used the physical book to follow along a little bit, especially closer to the end. Wow, this book really surprised me. It was super good. I wasn't expecting. There was a big plot twist close to the end that I was not expecting. And I don't really want to give too much away with this one. I am giving it a 5-star rating. It was super good, really worth it, and I highly recommend this read. I do want to go get this author's other books and read those ones as well. I believe there's 2 other ones. I mean, this one was super good. It reminded me of, if any of you have seen Expedition Unknown, the episodes where he follows the secret code, the puzzle, like a treasure hunt through the book where there's a bunch of clues and like poems and illustrations. I think this was inspired by that, honestly, because it felt like that through this, and it was so clever and well thought out. Apparently she did write this during the lockdown as well, in 2019, so yeah, so it was a really good read. I highly recommend it, and without giving too much away, it is like a treasure hunt, and there's all these clues to follow, and the main character is a guy, a slightly older guy who just got out of jail, and he basically talks about his upbringing and what led him to that point, and why basically why he is the way he is, and he's got just this personality to him. And he's also, you know, he doesn't really know technology. He was in jail for 11 years, so you know, it's basically him just figuring out life again, and trying to reconnect with his now grown son that he doesn't really know. So yeah, it's super good. It's very clever, and like I said, I just don't want to give too much away with this one. I don't want to ruin it. I went in mostly blind, other than what Meg with Books had said about this one, and she did a spoiler-free review as well. She didn't want us to give too much away with it as well, so I'm gonna follow that line and do the same here. And she was the reason I was actually turned on to this book. She recommended it on several of her videos, of this being one of her favorites. And so that was the main reason I bought this book. And now that I finally got around to reading it, I can totally understand why. And I do agree with her testament of listening to the audiobook while reading it as well, like doing a little bit of both, physical and audio, because I literally used one of my free credits on Audible to listen to it while I was reading my physical copy. And it really is worth it because the format and the style of this book, it's basically a bunch of audio files that have been transcribed through a program and put basically into, you know, transcribed onto paper. And that's how this is. And I really loved the format. I loved that style. I like the mixed media kind of thing, you know. I love when books are different that way, like being unique, and you know, it's very original. I really like it. So it honestly kind of reminded me of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder in that way as well, with like that mixed media aspect. So I definitely, if you're into mysteries or treasure hunts or you know, the mixed media type style books, I do highly recommend this one. Like I said, 5-star rating, and it honestly deserves more stars than that. I'm very glad this was the first one of the month that I read. So it is Wednesday, August 9th. It is already pretty late, so I'm going to quickly film this clip. But I finished listening to The Haunting at Bonaventure Circus today, and wow, I'm actually, it's not what I expected at all. However, it was still a really good read. I did listen to this one almost entirely on Audible. I hardly even touched the book, to be honest. So, still a brand new book that's hardly been touched. But I'm kind of glad I did the Audible thing, because that's the only way I was able to read as much as I did and as quickly as I did in the past few days while I was reading it. Yeah, so I did start reading this one on the 7th, and it is now the 9th, so it did take about 3 days to read this one. The first day I only read like 106 pages. I don't remember how much I read the next day, and then finally I finished it today. So also, if you can hear, I don't know if you can, we are currently in tornado weather while I'm filming this, so Arkansas. But yeah, so this was a really good read, and believe it or not, it is another 5-star rating, which is very exciting for me. That makes 2 in a row that has been 5-star rating reads, which is pretty great because the past few months haven't been very wealthy with those ratings. So this was actually a pretty good read. It's not at all what I expected it to be when I bought it. This one is set on 2 different timelines, 2 different, yeah, I guess you would say 2 different times. So there's the back in the day, which is actually 1928. So back when all the vintage traveling circuses were going on and they were a big thing. Pippa Ripley is our main character, and she actually was born as part of the circus, but abandoned by her parents and given to the owners of the circus who run it. And so they adopted her as their daughter. She has a deformed leg, and yeah, they've always, basically, she grew up being very controlled. So her parents, her father especially, was very, you know, back then they had just gotten the women's vote. Women were just being able to vote, and, you know, he was still very set in his ways. He was very sexist. He felt like he should be, because he was the head of the family, he had to control everything. He had to, he basically gave orders. Everyone had to do as he said. It had to be his way or the highway kind of deal, which always angers me. And I think I said this, I filmed an earlier clip, and I think I said this a little bit. where storylines like that just really piss me off. They make me really mad. So when I first started reading this, like the first day I think was when I filmed that first clip, and I had only gotten like 106 pages into the book at that point. And yeah, it was so hard to get into just because that was a big part of the storyline, and that did continue through the rest of the book. However, both of the main characters from both timelines did get happy endings in a way. So I was very pleased with how the story went from then on. I didn't really have too many anger management problems as we went on. There were a couple moments I had to like take some deep breaths, but other than that, so yeah, finished this today. The other timeline was Chandler Falk. She is basically she's basically one of those people that goes and restores old historic places under her uncle owns the business, but he kind of passes some of the bigger jobs onto her. She is a young mom. She has finished with college and everything, but she was a young mom. She has a 7-year-old boy named Peter, and she's very much, she's a single mom. She was a young mom, and she always thought her parents were not very happy with her decisions and with her having this baby. She didn't really know fully for sure who the father was, and she has recently discovered that she has a autoimmune disorder. And so she kind of, she tends to have occasional seizures. She tends to, you know, have a weakened immune system. And so she's battling that while being a young single mom. And she's also worried that her coworker is trying to steal her position because her uncle she's a very hard worker, and she is like top dog in her uncle's business. And this guy is aiming for that and trying to get rid of her. So she is under a lot of pressure, as well as not telling many people about her autoimmune disease, and including her parents. She basically has no relationship with her parents the past 7 years because like I said, they weren't very happy with her decisions. And she was always worried that they were going to take her son away from her if they thought she wasn't doing a good enough job as a mom. But she had nothing to fear. She's a really great mom. She would do anything for her son, and by the end of the book, you really got to see what really she would do for her son. So yeah, and in the end, I was very happy with the parents and her family, and all of that really came through for her. So, and I don't want to give too much away because I do highly recommend you read this one for yourself. Like I said, 5-star rating. If you are into like spooky mysteries, vintage circus, if you're into dual timelines, this book is for you. Like I said, 1928, and then present day, which is many decades later. So yeah, she has came onto the old circus and train depot's grounds that the 1928 timeline took place in. In 1928, it was fully functioning, it was in full swing, it was a big deal. But now, in present day, of course, it's been abandoned and shut down for quite a while. And there was, I think back in the day, there was a serial killer called the Watchman that was going around, and I think he was basically following the train. He was going with the circus on the train is what everyone believed. And yeah, so, and they caught somebody and they charged him, but it turns out he may have been the wrong person, and they didn't catch the real guy. So it all comes down to when this girl, Chandler, in present day is going to restore the old train depot where the circus trains came in and everything. She ends up basically thrown into this mystery and is having to basically solve it in order to basically save her son and herself in a way. So It's wild, and both timelines, you see the parallels between both of the main characters and what they're having to go through as young women, and the choices that they have to try and make for themselves. They're both they want to be highly independent, and they're both very, strong, but, they both have battles with, being girls. They have these battles they have to face, and even decades later, Chandler is having to deal with the same problems, similar problems that Pippa from 1928 had to deal with herself. So yeah, and both of them end up, there's a little bit of romance in there, so it was just a really good book. I highly recommend this one, and I think that's all I want to say about this one. Like I said, there was a serial killer back in the day, and even in present day, it's still an ongoing mystery, decades later, seeing how much time has passed and how, one timeline has happened and how it has altered. You see how it messed with the present, So I love seeing when the timelines, have all these parallels, and you get to see what it's like in the future. See how what happened in the past affected the future. So yeah, if you were into any of that, I would highly recommend this. Like I said, it wasn't what I expected. I did expect more, I guess, like spooky abandoned circus, but I didn't really get that. Unfortunately, but it did have plenty of spooky moments and mystery and a little bit of romance, and I mean, it really made up for, I didn't really fully know what to expect with it, but I'm very happy with how this one turned out, and I'm really glad I bought this one. I am planning on looking into the other books by this author, because I know she has several others on Audible, and I think I'm just going to strictly do them through Audible, honestly. So yeah, I think I'm going to look out for this author in the future. I've actually saved a few on Audible already that I really am interested in trying out, so maybe you'll see them in a future TBR. So yeah, another one checked off the list, and this was a newer book, so I'm glad I was able to get to it so fast. So I do want to sit and talk about Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Now, if you have not heard of this book, I will be highly surprised. This book was 418 pages long, and I did give it a 5-star rating, just like the other two books I did this past month for August, and it was such a good book. I flew through it in 2 days and absolutely loved it. Now, what happened was, this book is kind of a unique experience for me, because the Saturday before, I forget what day it was. So I actually started this on the 29th and finished it on the 30th of August. And the Saturday before that was actually the day I had bought it. So I actually went out of town and went shopping and spent the whole day with my sister that Saturday. And then when we got back into town, she decided, on the way there, she was saying how obsessed she had gotten with a new movie on Amazon Prime, which is Red, White, and Royal Blue, and she was saying how obsessed she was, and how she even bought the book and read the book, and now she had ordered the special edition of the book because it had an extra scene in it, and she couldn't wait to even reread it when it came in. And so she was just talking nonstop about it, and I was like, this sounds really good. Like, it sounds like something I would actually be into. And then when we got back, I bought the book when we were in the bookstore there. We went book shopping, and I went ahead and bought the book, and I figured eventually I'd get around to reading it. And then when we got back into town later in the afternoon, she was like, hey, why don't you just come to my house and we'll watch the movie on Amazon Prime. And I have to share how obsessed I am with this to you. And she has this fancy like theater room in the basement of her house with an actual projector and everything. And so it was kind of fun, and I got to go and I watched the movie. Fell in love with it. It's like a 2-hour-long movie or something, and it's so good. And we ended up watching it twice that night. Like, we went and got food, and then we came back and watched it again. It was amazing. And then I drove home, and I ended up watching it a third time that night at home by myself, and it was so great. I ended up watching it, I believe I showed it to my mom either the next night or the night after, and so I even showed it to her, and it was just, it's a great movie. I fell in love with it, and I was like, now I really do have to read the book just to see if, because she was telling me she couldn't even tell if the book or the movie was better. And you know, that's a very rare occurrence to happen, for you to not actually be able to decide which one's better, the movie or the book. So I did end up reading this. It only took a couple days. I flew through it, and I loved it so much, and I could see why she was so obsessed with it, and I got obsessed with it. It was to the point we were sending gifs of the movie back and forth to each other throughout the days, and every little moment I went through in the book, I had to text her about it and where I was at in the book, and we would gush over it. And so it's just a great, unique experience for me with this book. So this one's always going to have a special spot on my shelves and in my heart, because that experience was just so unique and so different, and I really had a great time with it. So this paired with the movie is amazing, and I hear they're actually holding on to Amazon Prime may come out with a 3-hour long version of the movie. They just cut it down to 2 hours to see how it would go, and unfortunately, because of the strike right now, the actors in it aren't really able to talk or about it or post about it. So but I really hope they do come out with the longer version or a sequel. There may be talks. The author has said that we're not done with these characters yet, so I'm hoping there will be another book. But right now it is a standalone, and I do highly recommend you get this one. It is so good. So let me tell you a little bit about it now that I've gushed over my experience with it. There is basically the United States president is a female. She came into office after the Obamas, I believe, and she has a son. So he is the first son. So yeah, so he's considered the first son of the United States. And then we have a prince from England, of course, who is born and raised as a royal, and then they both start off like hating each other, because especially Alex, who is the first president, you know, the president's son. He's the first son. He actually really hates Prince Henry from England because he's constantly being compared to him. He's basically, you know, the Prince of the U.S. is what they're calling him. So they're constantly comparing him to Henry, who grew up in this, and Alex did not grow up in this. He was a working class kid. He grew up that way in Texas, and then his mom came in office, I think when he was like 12 or something, and his mom is up for re-election. So he is trying to help his mom win this re-election and basically do all of, be a big part of all the campaigning and traveling around Texas and trying to get Texas to flip in order to vote for, and try to convince everyone to vote for his mom. And so they originally start off hating each other, and then basically what happens is he is a special guest at a wedding for the prince's older brother, and the wedding cake comes down on top of both of them while they were fighting, and it's hilarious. It's great, and you guys have to watch the movie on top of reading the book. It's so good. And I'm like my sister. I can't tell which one's better, the book or the movie. I love both of them equally, and I love them so much. So I honestly, like my sister, may actually get the special edition of this book if I feel the need, because I might actually do it. So, but eventually they do start crushing on each other, and they have this cute, flirtatious, like, it takes a while, you know, they're constantly texting each other, like, and emailing each other back and forth, and it's cute and flirtatious, and it's funny because they're constantly, like, ripping on each other, giving each other a hard time, and it's really funny. And then I think around New Year's is when it kind of starts to change, and they both slowly just fall in love, but they're having to keep their relationship a secret because of both of their, you know, big roles, you know, being in the public eye. And yeah, so it's just a really good book. I highly recommend you pick it up for yourself, and also watch the movie on Amazon Prime. I literally bought Prime just to watch the movie, and I still have Prime because I keep rewatching the movie. It's become my new comfort movie to play in the background, and so I highly recommend this one. Thank you to my sister for recommending this to me, and it was just a great experience to share with her, and I really enjoyed it. So highly recommend it, 5-star rating, and it was a great one to end the month with. So yeah, I believe that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed this messy, crazy wrap-up video for the months of July and August 2023. I know it was a little wild and all over the place, and I do apologize for this. I should have went ahead and uploaded my July wrap-up video. I just kind of held on to it. I wasn't feeling too great about it. And then this month I only read 3 books, so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna mash them together, and I'm still gonna upload because I don't want all that footage to go to waste either from July, and I want to talk about the books like they deserve to be talked about. So honestly, it's hard to pick a favorite book for the month of August, but I do believe Red, White, and Royal Blue won it out just because of the experience I had with my sister and with the movie. Like, it would be, honestly, that's the reason it wins out for me. All 3 books that I read this month were all 5 stars. They were all great, but that one wins out just because of the experience I had. And yeah, so that was an easy winner. My favorite book from July would have to be, I believe, Escape from Asylum. I believe it was actually the only 5-star rating from the month of July. So yeah, so there's my winners, and I hope you guys enjoyed this messy video. I hope it all made sense. I've been rambling on for a while, so I'm going to end it here, but thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next video, and I hope you guys continue to support my TBR Clue Game videos, because I really enjoy doing those, and I have a great time. I have already started this month's TBR. I've already finished a book, so I'm starting off strong again, but I also did keep this month's TBR simple, and I narrowed it down, so hopefully that'll help a little bit and give me a little bit of a refresher before October hits. So I do have a lot of plans coming up, so please stay tuned, like and subscribe, because it's gonna get crazy. So thank you guys for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye for now.